Uh, Matthew Will looks like a ghost. Yeah, that's
Where
my
have I
wife's hand.
seen where have I seen that picture before on your T-shirt there?
Well, I'll talk about it later, but it's from
Oh, okay.
George Millet's Travel to the Moon from 1902. I'll talk
Ah,
about that as
I've
part
seen
of
it
my
somewhere. Yeah.
fantasy flight. It's one of the
Uh-huh.
most iconic pictures in all of moviedom.
Ah, yes.
But yeah, I'm on the board of directors of the Niles S&A, that's ESSANAY, Silent Film Museum here in the Fremont area, Niles. We show silent films every Saturday night in a theater built in 1913 as the Nickelodeon by
Oh,
Thomas Edison because he wanted to sell projectors and films and cameras and such. So he built hundreds of theaters around the country, and only a few of the buildings survive. And we're the only ones showing film, film. We sometimes DVDs, but we prefer to show film uh,
uh-huh.
in a theater. We have the original projection booth upstairs. Still has the tin on the floor, the walls, and the ceiling to protect the theater from the nitrate films. You know, nitrate is the N in TNT, and so we have to protect. We don't show old nitrate film. We show safety film. We have the ability to scan the old films, put it on the electronic file, send it over to the UK. There's a company over there that then puts it on safety film and sends it back to us.
How about that?
Or we get films from the Library of Congress. We borrow from them or from others. We have about 17,000 films in our collection.
Wow.
Yep. So we've been since 2005. We've been in this theater. We had to shut down because of COVID, but otherwise we've been every Saturday night since, well, 20 years now. Got next year.
Where
So,
are you?
huh?
Where are you?
In Fremont, California.
Oh,
I
okay.
live in Niles, and we're in the theaters in Niles, which is part of Fremont. We live in Union City, which is right next door to Niles. I'm about 7, 8 miles away from the theater. Charlie Chaplin was here from mid-January to April 7th, 1915. He made 5 films here, the last one being The Tramp, which set him up as his character from then on. Bronco Billy came out with a film crew in April of 1912. He wanted to shoot westerns. They made roughly 350 films in the 4 years that they were in operation, and unfortunately, only about 35%, about 10%, I should say, survive. The rest are just lost, unfortunately. We have a bunch of them. Um, and so after I give my talk tonight, 7 o'clock, I'll be at the theater, the docent and helping out. We have historians. One of our board members was with the as a curator at the uh, Arts and the Academy of Arts and Science Library down in LA for 30 years. We have those type of people. So it's I wouldn't say very unique because you just stay unique. That gets the object done. But yeah, we do show silent films, and one of them is we show this every once in a while. Um, and I'll talk about that more during my talk.
Yeah, I've got a copy of the Luna Cognita 3-volume set.
Thank you. And sure, you're not using it just as a doorstop. It he knows why because the book altogether is 3 volumes, weighs about 14 pounds.
Yeah.
It's 1,800 plus pages. Like Ed Krupp from Griffith, when he got his copy, sent me a message that they're going to use it to hold down the observatory, the Griffith Observatory, in case of an earthquake.
That sounds like Ed.
Yeah, I met Ed in a total eclipse in off of Baja on the Viking Serenade, and the keynote speaker on the ship was Harrison Schmidt,
Oh
and
my.
and he agreed to write the introduction to my book.
Oh,
He-
that's
I
very
hardly,
nice.
I'd
Hey,
hardly
Robert. Robert, I just got here. How do you get copies of that?
how do you what?
Get copies of the 3-set volume.
Oh, well,
Amazon.
it's available on
Amazon?
Amazon, but I prefer you go to Springer. The reason being that Amazon has a problem of sending volume 1 to one customer, volume 2 to the next guy, and volume 3 to the next.
I
And I've got a
remember
whole
that.
bunch of one-star reviews because of that.
I remember that.
And Chuck Wood, who you probably all know, called me and told me that he had talked to some gal in India with Amazon, and she said, "Oh, the website is wrong. That it comes as 3 separate books, and it comes in a package. You remember that says don't separate this. Don't take it apart. That's how they send it. Springer knows how to send all 3 volumes, and they
Good
don't
help. Good help is hard to find.
and they don't separate it, and they know how to ship it. So go to Springer. The price is $89.90. I've seen on Amazon as much as 125. I've also seen it at 54. In fact, one of my I lose my voice sometimes. Sorry about it. One of my friends, she ordered the book when it first came out. She got 1 volume. She sent it back, and at the time she was doing all that, Amazon had lowered the price to 54. She canceled the first order and then got the book at $54, and they sent her all 3 volumes. So
Yeah, I got it when it first came out.
yeah, I'm glad you.
I must have gotten it from Springer.
Got it.
Yeah, so I'm sure you're.
I got mine from Springer for 70 for it.
You what?
Times change.
Yeah.
74 to 89.
Mine's autographed.
Yes, Rick, but whose autograph? Thank you, Robert. Appreciate
That's
the
like
info.
my copy. That's like my copy of Fragmente by Schroeder. It's autographed too, but it's autographed by Ewan Whitaker.
Well, you autographed a bunch of my books as well.
He was a fantastic person.
I miss him dearly, but we visited him down in Tucson a couple of times. In fact, one night, now he's in his 90s. He said, "Oh, let's go out to dinner." So he takes us driving like Mr. Toad, Mr. Toad's Wild Ride through Tucson to get to a restaurant.
Oh, he lived less than a mile away from me when I was in my old house.
Uh-huh.
So I saw him a lot.
Yep. I miss his voice on the phone.
Yep.
And when you called, he would wait to hear who was calling him before he'd pick up.
I
And-
called him once, and I had Robert Reeves with me. And I said to him, can we come over and visit? He says, "Oh, sure." I said, "Okay, well, we'll come over in a little while, say hi to Beryl." And he says, "That'll be impossible. She passed away 3 days ago."
Yeah.
And I said, "Really? You want us coming over now?" And he says, "Oh, I need the distraction."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Tim, take it away.
Take it away. Okay. Well, welcome to the keynote address, the awards presentations, and the door prizes. Not in that order. It's going to be the awards, followed by the keynote, and I'm going to make you all wait for the door prizes at the end. I've received 27 entries. They're all in this little bowl right here. So I want to appreciate everybody for sending me their contact information. That's going to make it a lot easier this year. Ken, did you want to do
Okay.
something with this, or?
Yeah, we'll go into the awards.
Okay.
Okay. At this time, we have not 1, but 2 awards to present. Pardon me. The first one is the annual Walter Haas, or Walter H. Haas Observers Award. Now, you all know, I'm sure all of you know, that we give it out and it goes to the best observer, blah, blah, blah. But I'm going to read to you the official, background on this thing. It's bestowed annually, generally when the ALPO meets in the summer, to an amateur astronomer for excellence in observational solar system astronomy. The award is named after the founder, Walter Haas, the original executive director, and was established in 1985. It took that long. The selection of the award is conducted by a committee convened by its committee chairman, who used to be Walter Haas, but the committee chairman for the last couple of years has been Tim Robertson. The composition of the committee changes more or less from year to year, so that the responsibility of a selection is shared by a wider group of members in the ALPO that are well qualified, while allowing others that vote one year to be considered for the award in another year when not serving on the committee. Now, as I said, the award is given for excellence in solar system observational amateur astronomy. Work done as part of the observer's job must be regarded as professional work. So it's not considered as an amateur effort for this award. However, a professional astronomer can be recognized for work done when he or she was an amateur. Theoretical research, the publishing of papers, astronomical correspondence, financial support of amateur projects, and many other meritorious astronomical activities must likewise be ignored for this award. Because the ALPO does have another award, the Peggy Haas Service Award, which can recognize such outstanding services. This awardee need not be an active observer at the present time, nor does he or she need to be alive, nor is this award for observations in any particular year or any other time interval. Thus, the award is in the present year, but it might be for contributions perhaps in the 20th century. There's absolutely no requirement that the awardee be a citizen or a resident of the United States. It is enjoyable when the awardee can attend our convention, whether it's in person or online, but this matter is not a criterion for the selection of the awardee. It is, however, required that the awardee well represent the ideals of our organization, the Association of Lunar and Planetary Observers. Now, this award consists of a plaque, and the awardee receives a 2-year, count them, 2-year complimentary membership in the ALPO. Now, at this time, I'm going to turn it back over to Convention Chairman Tim Robertson for his special remarks.
Thank you. Thank you, Ken. Yeah, I first off want to thank the other committee members that we had this year: Richard Schmutte, Ken Peschedley, Carl Hergenrother, Rick Hill, and 2 of the previous winners of this award, Clyde Foster and Trevor Barry, for their assistance in this, because it's a very important award, I feel, and it's really been an honor to be the chairman of this award. This year's recipient, to say they've had a meteoric impact on astronomy would be an understatement. His first experience with meteors was a biggie in 1966, the Leonid meteor shower. In 1980, a major awakening occurred. He received a sample copy of the Meteor News. He was amazed to learn that there's a group that actually is devoted strictly to watching meteors. He joined the group and also started some minor showers list among the pages of the Meteor News. Lastly, he was then contacted by Springer Publishing in 2007 to write a book about observing meteors. The book's now available. You can get it anywhere. He's been the meteor section coordinator for years and contributor to the many sections of the ALPO. And I have to say, he's also one of the most popular guests on the Observer's Notebook podcast. And it's a great pleasure to award the 2004 Walter H. Haas Observer's Award to Bob Lunsford.
Wow, that's all I can say. I'm pretty much speechless. Thanks, everybody.
Let's read to you what's on the plaque.
Sure.
in recognition of your many years of interest in and contributions to the ALPO, specifically observing meteors. A longtime member of the ALPO, Bob has headed the organization's meteors section since 1988, when he also saw creation of the International Meteor Organization. He has contributed steadily to the ALPO's own journal and is also the author of the book Meteors and How to Observe Them. Plus, he remains active in the American Meteor Society, all of which allows him to correspond with meteor observers worldwide. The ALPO recognizes and values your expertise and commends you and your dedication to our organization. And if I can get my own, there we go. You see a picture of it, and here is the plaque itself.
That's very nice. Thank you. I'm overwhelmed by the recognition. I know I've been tugged three ways by the IMO and the AMS and ALPO, and I always haven't been able to give you guys 100%. But with Tim's help, it's kind of brought me to the forward and been able to communicate with a lot of folks I haven't, wouldn't have otherwise been able to. And it's ALPO's basically been very good to me. So thank you very much.
Do you have any future plans?
No, I'm gonna stick with the three groups and keep on going. I'm very busy and I'm grateful for it. I love what I do. So I just hope I can actually contribute more to the planetary section of ALPO. That's when I'm not laying on my back watching meteors, I'm photographing through my C 9.25. So like I said, ALPO's been very good to me, and I hope I can give more to them.
Yeah, Bob, as the chairman of the Walter Haas Award, your name has been in the top few the last 4 years. So I'm finally happy to see that you are finally getting what I believe you really deserve.
Well, there's been more important folks than me that have deserved and received the award. So I'm thank you just to be considered.
There you go. Congratulations from all of us.
Thanks.
Okay. At this time, we're going to move along to the aforementioned service award. The Peggy, well, formally, her name was Beryl, B-E-R-Y-L, Beryl Haas, or known as Peggy. The Peggy Haas Service Award was established in 1997 to recognize those members of the ALPO for outstanding service to the organization other than the Observing Award. The current ALPO Executive Director, that being me, solely selects the recipient for this award. There is no committee, and that award can recognize any ALPO officer, board member, volunteer staff member, or non-staff member who has contributed outstanding service to the organization in a capacity that excludes observational skills. The award obviously was named for the founder's late wife, Peggy, in appreciation for her own support of the ALPO in her own many meaningful and indispensable ways, from assisting her husband, Walter, with the journal, to creating the banner that hung in front of the rostrum at the ALPO paper sessions when we had in-person annual meetings. She was also the ALPO librarian for its book lending service from 1966 to 1985. The Peggy Haas Service Award is not necessarily an annual award, but it's presented when appropriate, and again, not at any specific time interval. Now, this award consists of an engraved plaque, but it also, the awardee also receives a lifetime membership in the Association of Lunar and Planetary Observers. So at this time, I'm going to introduce David Teskey for further remarks.
Hey, Ken, thank you. I'm going to share my screen here. Maybe. Yes, I'm trying. Can you see that?
Yep.
Okay, cool. The Peggy Haas Award, as Ken just talked about, is a great honor for any member of ALPO to have. And this winner of the Peggy Haas Award goes to the gentleman who's pictured here. This is a recent photograph of our gentleman. You'll notice that his telescopes are probably simpler than your telescopes, but they do a really good job, and they've done a really good job for decades. This gentleman has given decades of selfless service in the astronomy fields of lunar drawings, occultation reports, lunar eclipse crater timings, meteor observation, eclipse chasing. He's often been featured on the front pages of the Lunar Observer since around 1998. Great drawings, great reports. Drawings are beautiful, very well detailed. As best of them are made with a 6-inch f8 refractor. Again, beautiful drawings.
You said refractor?
And he's been doing them. I'm sorry, reflector. And he's been doing that until about a year ago, when health conditions kind of deemed it more challenging. And the Peggy Haas Award goes to Robert H. Hayes, Jr. And in our plaque reads, the Association of Lunar and Planetary Observers, Peggy Haas Service Award 2024, Robert H. Hayes, in recognition of your many, many years of interest and contributions to ALPO, especially with your lunar sketches for the Lunar Observer newsletter. With over 5 decades of observing everything from eclipses to lunar occultations, meteors to planets, variable stars, and other deep sky objects, the ALPO believes that you have set a great example for all sky observers to emulate. The ALPO recognizes and values your expertise and commends you and your dedication to our organization.
And we need
Congratulations, Robert Hayes. This is an honor well deserved.
And we need to state that Robert is just one of those people who remains old technology, does not, I don't know if he has a computer, but he does not do email or online anything. He and David have communicated solely by paper.
Snail mail.
So he is obviously not here online or in person to receive this, but here is the award for him that will be getting out to him. It's going to be a big surprise when David phones him in the near future to let him know. So it's congratulations, Mr. Hayes.
Hey, David? David?
Yes.
When you contact him,
Yes.
you're gonna call him on the phone?
Yes.
I would like to be able to record that and, maybe release it as a video or something that we can do.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Let me know. Let me know.
Sounds great. I appreciate it, Tim.
All right.
Bye.
At this time, turning everything back to our Master of Ceremonies, Mr. Tim Robertson.
Okay. Wayne, do you have a question?
I just wanted to make a comment that didn't quite come through with what David had just said. I don't know if he's even aware, but Robert Hayes had a string. I can't remember now exactly what it was. But when I was lunar coordinator, he had a string of continuous observations every month, submissions every month from back when Bill Dembowski was. So it's something like around 10 years of continuous observations. And that continued for a while past when Dave took over. Before he missed a month, I believe.
All right. I'd like to now introduce our keynote speaker for this evening, Bob Garfinkel. And his title of his talk is Fantasy Flights to the Moon. Take it away, Bob. You're muted, Bob.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. Once I put up my thing I share, I couldn't find the audio. Yes, Fly Me to the Moon is my topic today. And what I always like to do is I dedicate my talk on this to Mike Reynolds, who most of you know or knew.
You're not sharing your screen yet.
I thought I was.
Nope.
Oh, wait a second. How do I get out of this mess then? There we go. Wait a minute. I need to go back to Zoom. Come on, where are all you guys?
You can close your presentation and then share your screen and then open your presentation.
All right. I had it, and now I can't even get back to. Where are you guys?
Communications right there. Yeah, well, what's wrong with these weird kids for testing? Quick, good Russia.
Showing the case files.
Files. Oh, try to get the reports.
This is it's ridiculous. I can't even see you guys. I've lost.
You may have to go out and come back in.
That's what I'm trying to. Let me go back. Let me try it again.
All right, we see you.
You see me, but I can't see any of you. But the camera's on. I did the exact same thing yesterday. Come on, allow. I hear something in the background. All right, let me shut down. I don't know what's going.
I can see the speaker full screen.
Okay, now I see. Okay. Let me hit share. Okay, let me find my talk. Okay, I went to presentation mode. Are we on now?
There you go.
Okay, sorry about that. I did exactly what I did yesterday, and everything went kaflooey. Okay, let me start again. Most of you knew Mike. Mike was the last director of the old Chabot Observatory in Oakland, and was the new director first director of what's now the Chabot Space and Science Center, and we became pretty good friends. When I went to Florida for the last transit of Mercury, we were going to get together for a little while, a day or two before. Unfortunately, Mike passed away just before the transit. You'll notice in the background, he has a model of the space shuttle. A lot of people didn't know that Mike was the runner-up to be on the Columbia space shuttle but Christy McAuliffe beat him out. Lucky for us, unfortunate for the whole world, Mike was not on that space shuttle. So I dedicate my talk to Mike. Okay, this happens to be my asteroid certificate because you didn't really give a good introduction. In my star hopping book, I have lots of astronomical history, and it is sold over 14,000 copies. Now, Luna Cognita, in Luna Cognita, I do talk about a lot of the history. Those of you who have copies know what what the book is about. What I like is Springer put this cover together rather than their normal blue BS stuff. Is an antique map in the back, a more modern map in the front, but it's the O here in Cognita coming out from behind like an occultation. I thought that was very clever of them to do that. So let's get started on the fantasy flights. Probably the earliest one is by the Greek author Lucian. The title of the book is The True History. But at the very first sentence or so, he tells you, I made up everything. Nothing's really true. So they go out through the Straits of Magellan and they stop at an island where rivers run full of wine, fish, and bears. But they're sucked up to the moon by a vortex. And when he gets to the moon, they find there's a war between the kings of the sun and the moon over colonization of Venus. But he meets King Endymion. Now, you know, Endymion is a mythological character from Greek mythology. He participates in the war in which they are victorious in. On the way home, and he doesn't tell you how he got back to the earth, they are swallowed by a 200-mile-long whale. They build a fire in the whale, and that's how they get out. Now, he says in the beginning he's going to tell you how the story ends, but he never wrote the second book as far as we know. It doesn't survive. Okay. Now, I mentioned Endymion. This is a famous painting from the 1700s by a man named Michel Francois d'André Bardon. If you want to see this painting, it's hanging in the Palace of the Legion of Honor. It's a big painting. It's like 56 inches tall, 78 inches by 51. Now, Diana is usually shown with a crescent on her forehead in painting, but here she has the crescent moon behind her. Now, she's also the goddess of fertility as well as the moon. I keep hearing feedback. Is that from me or somebody got their microphone on? So, as the goddess of fertility, that's why she's bare-breasted in the picture. Now, you notice there's a Cupid and a hunting dog and a hunting horn. Now, Endymion was condemned to sleep by Zeus because he had boasted that he was the most handsome guy. Now, I do copy here from Shakespeare's Merchant of Venice, where Portia says, please ho, the moon sleeps with Endymion and would not be awakened. Well, the thing is that the two of them, Diana and Endymion, have 50 children, 50 daughters, while he's asleep, poor guy. What they figured is that the 50 moons were the time period between Greek Olympics, was 50 months, which is 4 years and 2 months. Okay, which is appropriate being that we're Paris Olympics right now. Okay, so this is the crater Endymion. It's one of the few, there's only 3 craters named by Langrenus that are still carry the same name at the same location. Okay. Now, one of the first books on the fantasy flight, although I really don't consider this a fantasy flight book, because Kepler, in his dream, was trying to avoid trouble with the church and other leaders by making a story up, but he was trying to be scientific. The book is actually almost twice as long, the footnote, as the short story. But he calls the creatures on the moon that he runs across in his dream Sublovians. Now, most of the other stories, they use the Greek name Selene, Selene. And you'll find that in words like sonography and cellographic coordinates and such. So he died in 1630. The book came out in 1634. So it is, you might say, the first of the books from that time period. There were lots of them, but I'll cover some of them. Now, one that is popular was The Man in the Moon, or The Discourse on the Voyage Hither by Domingo Gonzalez, the Speedy Messenger. And you know, we have the term Speedy Gonzalez. That's where this comes from. And it was written by a British author, Francis Goodwin, and he lived from 1562 to 1633. And you'll notice that up here at the top, these are birds with and a sail. And he's being taken, he flies to the moon by swans. The swans live on the moon, but generally come back down to Earth and then go back to the moon. He finds that the moon people are 28 feet tall, and the women are more beautiful than on Earth. These people do not die, they just simply disappear. The moon, I love this. Hope none of you are lawyers or doctors. The moon is the paradise because there are no doctors or lawyers, and food just grows everywhere. I'm getting feedback from somebody. Could you please make sure that all of you are muted?
It must be you because all of us are muted except for you.
Oh. Well, I don't know why I'd be getting the ridiculous mess my wife has it on. The last one is
We don't hear it. We don't hear any feedback.
okay.
You may wish to turn off your own computer's speaker. If your computer's speaker is feeding into your microphone, you'll get feedback.
That could be. Let me kill that. Okay. Yeah, it's very much delayed. Okay. Anyway, Cyrano de Bergerac wrote his comic History of the States of the Empires of the Moon in 1656. Now, he put bottles of dew around his waist, and that's what brought him up to the sun. I mean, up to the moon, which is up here in the corner. Now, he wrote another story in which they use what we call a coach, they called a car, in which he threw a metal car, which he threw a magnet up in the sky, and then tossed the magnet up, and the car would catch up to it. Well, my feeling is he kind of forgot that what if he takes the magnet away from the car? Wouldn't the car fall back down towards the earth? Anyway, that was the story that he wrote. Now, this book is an Italian book written in 1763, in which the protagonist flies up to the moon on a cloud. Now, WorldCat lists only 9 copies, and I own one of those 9. It's in Italian, and I've been able to translate parts of what I need. Now, in this one here, they thought that the rain on the earth came from the moon. And here you have this drawing the sun heating up the moon and the water coming down and being collected in these bottles. Now, this was a commentary on Descartes, which was kind of normal in those days. You'd have somebody like Descartes write a book, and the other people would write books criticizing it. And so it's an ingenious satire on Descartes' system of vortexes put into the form of a cosmic voyage through the Cartesian universe. Okay. Now, this is another where, hang on a second. Kath, no, I think my wife is, oh, what I'm hearing is she has a speaker on the headset. Okay, the journey to the moon by and conversations with the inhabitants respecting the condition of man in 1811 by a Reverend John Campbell. He lived from 1766 to 1840. And so when he flies up the moon, he's got his little tabletop telescope, and here's the moon, and this is the London down here. He goes up to the moon and he talks to the inhabitants. He wants to know if they know, people on the moon want to know if we know about God. Okay. So during the 1500s to 1800s, there were additional fantasy flights to the moon using such things as birds, flying horse, and mysteriously powered flying machines, or simply just dreams. In 1516, the poet Ariosto Ledvecchio, he published his story, Orlando Furioso, The Frenzy of Orlando, where Ariosto and Orlando travel to the moon to retrieve Orlando's lost wits. They bring his wits back to Earth, and Orlando is restored to good health. Well, there was a thinking that day that everything on Earth travels up to the moon. There was also the theory at that time, later I should say, with Herschel. He thought that when he was looking at the Milky Way, the dark areas of the Milky Way were actually gateways to heaven. Heaven was farther away. So they thought the feeling was that people's spirit stopped at the moon first and then travel up farther through the spheres, the crystal spheres, the stars and the planets around each crystal sphere, that they would go, everything would stop at the moon first and then travel on. Now, before I get to Daniel Defoe, a lot of people don't realize that Cervantes in Don Quixote, most people read as far as the windmills and then stop reading the book. In book 2, one of his characters rides a horse from Madrid to Rome, flying horse, and on the way he touches the moon because they thought the moon was not very far away. In fact, the Greeks thought that if you went north, the moon, when it was rising, you could touch it with your hand. They had no idea it was 200,000 miles away. So Daniel Defoe published a book called The Consolidator, in which his main character goes to the moon and runs around, comes back down. He's more well known for Robinson Crusoe. Now, in the early 1800s, Lord John Russell, who was a prime minister for a while, he travels to the moon and finds numerous large, noisy warehouses filled with everything lost on the earth, including speeches, his wife's nagging comments, memories, money, wits, etc. He doesn't tell how he got to the moon or back. Now, he wrote the book anonymously. His name is not on the cover or anything. But when I purchased the book, there was a newspaper clipping about a woman who was known to John Russell, and the book is dedicated to her. The bookseller had the handwriting analyzed, and the expert said it's John Russell's handwriting, because it's dedicated to her as a presentation copy. So we know the book was by John Russell. He just didn't want the regular public to know who had done it. Now, this picture is very appropriate if you watched the opening ceremony last night for the Olympics. The Montgolfier balloon sent to the moon. The people in the moon, here you see the people in the moon, they've got a telescope, and here's a little refractor, another one here. And they're all up in arms. This is from Popular Astronomy by Camille Flammarion. And the people are afraid of the balloon reaching the moon. Now, down below, I've translated this as, but fright is in the moon, where the onlookers and ignorant judge the wandering balloon on a little common planet. Now, those of you who watched or did not watch the Olympic opening ceremony, you remember that when they lit the cauldron, they raised it up in a hot air balloon in honor of the Montgolfiers who invented the hot air balloon. I thought that was a nice touch. Also, in the opening ceremony, they had the moon fly by with the bullet in the eye. That was another thing they did. Okay. Now, in 1835, American horror short story writer and poet Edgar Allan Poe published part one of his proposed two-part short story, Hans Fall, in which Fall flies up to the moon in a balloon. You can see why the moon people were scared. And he returns by the same device. Poe described in some detail what the moon looks like using known facts of his day. But in the same year, the American newspaper journalist Richard Adams Locke, he published his story about John Herschel making some fantastic discoveries in the moon, which became known as the moon hoax. Poe, figuring his story was kaput, he destroyed the manuscript for the second part of the story. Herschel had no idea what was going on, but the Locke story made him world famous. He was well known, obviously, in the UK and in Europe. So that Locke story with flying Batman and stuff was really weird. Now, this is kind of a character, Baron Munchausen. He had all these fantastic tales, but he flies to the moon in a boat, and you notice the moon, there's the mouth, the nose, and the eyes, and he has kind of a frightened appearance on him. So Munchausen gets to the moon and wanders around, meets the people there, and then he has to figure out how can he get home. Well, he hooks a rope to the moon, and he cuts himself and falls back down to the moon, to the earth. That was in 1865. Well, that's also the year that Jules Verne came out with probably the most famous travel to the moon, called De la Terre à la Moon, from the Earth to the Moon. And then 5 years later, he came out with Round the Moon. Well, this is the cover of the American edition of his book. And the author, I guess, didn't read the book because they only had the bullet-shaped capsule, not the train. What they did, if you're not familiar with the story, is they built a cannon, the Baltimore Gun Club, in area of Cape Canaveral in Florida, and they fire the bullet-shaped capsule up to. You want to turn off you're getting feedback from your headset. My wife just came in the office here. That's what the feedback is. I'm listening to the headset. Yeah. She's causing all kinds of problems here. Anyway, in the second book, Round the Moon, people thought that Jules Verne made up all this stuff in his story. Well, in this book, as they're flying over the lunar rays, one of the characters asks Dr. Barbicane, who is the lead character on this flight around the moon, the second flight, and he explains that the rays are cracked and that James Carpenter says so. Carpenter wrote an article that appeared in the monthly notices of the RAS in 1844, in which he explained that the rays were cracks, and as the sun came over, and the cracks, vapors would come out from the moon. And so Jules Verne's character says that Carpenter is correct in explaining that to his companions about the rays. So Verne was well aware of the science of his day. Now, how he came up with nuclear power in a submarine and going to the center of the Earth and it being lit up, those are fantasies. Although nuclear power did come in, 100 years later, roughly. So, like I said, this is the copy of the American edition. Now, Verne was very upset about this particular book. This came out in 1896, approximately. This is just the cover, in which a man who used the name Pepre de Seligny, remember I mentioned about Seligny, his real name was Ludvecchio de la Dribble. What his people did, the three adventurers go up to, they use the equipment from Jules Verne. In other words, they use the cannon. And they travel up to the moon, and they're there for a couple of years. Now, how they communicated back to the Earth that they were safe and whatever was going on is they set up big lights in Mare Imbrium. And when Mare Imbrium was in the dark, they would use Morse code to signal to the Earth. And on the Earth, they built a system of lights near Pikes Peak. So when Colorado was in the dark at night, then they could send signals back up to the moon. Now, one of the things is that these people, there's obviously an atmosphere, I guess. They walk around the moon to the far side, and they come across a village with a Gothic church. Now, the interesting is how they get home is they get their capsule. Now, I forgot to mention, they land in the rill, Hadley's rill, where Apollo 15 landed. And they go back and they sink down into the interior of the moon. That's when they run into the people, the Solonites. Now, to get back home, is they put the capsule in a volcano, a lunar volcano, and it erupts and sends them back home to the Earth. So up until the 1960s, volcanoes were the predominant theory for the formation of craters, until Eugene Shoemaker showed that now there's some impact from asteroids and other debris and such. And we know that the moon is hit all day long, all night long, just like the Earth with space debris, as we have the whole lunar section looking for flashes on the moon. All right, now, I'm wearing the t-shirt. You asked about it to begin with. This is one of the most famous pictures from all of cinema history. It's the famous spaceship hitting the right eye of the man in the moon from the 1902 film Le Voyage dans la Lune, Trip to the Moon by Georges Méliès from 1861 to 1938. But he was in the movie business from 1896 to 1913. Now, this was the second movie, I'm incorrect where I said second movie with a plot. This is one of the early movies with a plot. Because in 1898, he made the film The Astronomer's Dream, which includes the child-eating moon. Even the astronomer gets eaten and Diana saves him. Both these movies are available on YouTube. The Voyage to the Moon takes about 13 minutes. It was one of the longest first movies with a plot. The Astronomer's Dream is a 3-minute movie in which the astronomer, he's got a beard that goes past his waist, has the big tall hat, the wizard hat and such. A devil puts him to sleep. And he's looking at the moon through a telescope, and the moon gets bigger and bigger and bigger and comes down. His eyes are flashing, his eyebrows are going up and down, and he's eating the chairs. Just really ridiculous stuff. Finally, the devil comes back in to the scene. Diana, with her crown on her forehead, the crescent moon, wakes the astronomer up after throwing his body parts into the moon. And he comes back out. So George Méliès, he made hundreds of silent films, some of them very short, some of them a little bit longer. But like I said, you can where this I mentioned earlier about the Niles S&A Silent Film Museum. For those of you who came in late, we show silent films every Saturday night in a theater built by Thomas Edison's company in 1913. And we are the only ones showing silent films on a regular basis in an original Nickelodeon type theater in Niles, which is part of Fremont. Charlie Chaplin was here in early 1915, made 5 movies. We have a photograph of Charlie and his leading lady, Edna Purviance, and some other vaudevillians. Charlie, when he came to the United States, he was part of a vaudevillian troupe to begin with. His roommate and understudy was a man named Jefferson or Arthur Stanley Jefferson, and you know him as Stan Laurel. We always think that's real funny that Stan Laurel was Charlie's understudy. So this is again the famous bullet in the eye. Now, H.G. Wells came out with a book in 1901 called First Men on the Moon, in which the 2 adventurers fly to the moon using anti-gravity material developed by a man named Carver. So it's called Carverite. They go to the moon. It's inhabited by insect-like creatures, which he called selenites. Again, the word seleny comes into play. The men are captured but escape. Bedford returns to the Earth, but Carver's left behind, and he's able to communicate via radio, but he is never allowed to return. Now, what's interesting is that Morris, the Marconi system was brand new at that time, and how they were able to. Wells was able to incorporate it in his book. Now, just I think a year ago, a copy of this book was sold by a bookseller that I deal with, signed by the first man on the moon, Neil Armstrong. Hope you're sitting down because he sold the book for $25,000. I have a copy. In fact, this is a scan of my copy. I didn't pay $25,000 for it. Okay, this was kind of a crazy trip. He's actually trying to take school kids to teach them about Polaris, which is 264 trillion miles away at that time, considered, in an aeroplane, but they stop at the moon. Now, one of the things in some of these earlier stories, how do they get to the Earth, to the moon, knowing that there's no air in space? Is they would hold a wet sponge to their mouth, and that's what they used to get it. Now, this is kind of a crazy story. The cellular cosmogony. The Earth is a curved, concave sphere. You'll notice that there's like South America, North America, Africa, and Europe. And here's the sun shining on the moon. Now, these people are in Estero, Florida. You can still visit their site. It's a historical site in which this is a drawing of the universe inside the hollow earth. And this is Cyrus Corsh Reed Tweed is the one who established this organization. And in his book, one of his compatriots built a device on a beach to show that the earth curved up and not down. Okay. Now, if you're traveling to the moon, you're going to need this book, Le Merveilles des Mondes, A Day in the Moon in 1913, by Abbé Théophile Moreau. He lived until 1946. It's a travelogue for people going to the moon. Now, these are supposed to be the Alps here. Now, people thought, and even a lot of movies and such and other drawings of the moon, people thought they were sharp because you take something round, even like a ball, shine a light to it, the shadow is a cone, just like the moon shadow during an eclipse. And so they thought that the moon shadows that they saw were all because of the peaks were pointed. But you know that when the Apollo astronauts walked on the moon, that all the background, everything was rounded from the erosion. Now, this one I like. A man named French in Kansas, in Lawrence, Kansas, he would create these stereo views. This is 8 little porcelain dolls with feather wings flying to the moon. There's actually a set of 12, but I'm only concerned about these 2 where they're getting close to the moon. And right here is a prospector. So there's the man on the moon. So these are from 1895. He also made sets like the Stations of the Cross and other religious sets for your viewfinder. So when you hold it in 3D, and so of course here's the Earth in the background as the little dolls are landing, and you got the craters. And this is just the text from the back of the cards. Now, before I get to this one, there were lots of science fiction movies made, particularly in the 50s. You can find one on the internet called Destination Moon, in which 4 men, they fly to the moon in a spaceship. Funny thing is, they're dressed in coveralls with dress shoes and no helmet. And they wander around the moon. Their rocket is powered by water with a nuclear generator that produces like rocket and boils the water. Now, when I was working for Westinghouse, and we make the launch equipment for the Peacekeeper missile to launch it out of the tube, out of the ground, there was a big thing of water underneath. I'm not going to give any detail. And a rocket, and the water passes through the exhaust of the rocket. It would boil instantly with enough force to push the missile out of the ground. So this is that movie is very similar. It gets some things right. The one thing that I really point out is that when they land on the moon, one of the men calls it something, I forget exactly the word, before desolation. And when Buzz Aldrin was on the moon, he's well known as saying magnificent desolation. So I always wonder if he watched that movie from the 1950s. He may have. Okay, so fantasy became reality in June of 20th, 1969. And this is Neil Armstrong's signature. And somebody asked the other day, yes, this is the set of 6 that I own. Neil signed it back in 1976. So that's basically the fantasy flights. But I have some time, so I'll show things like Blue Moon Sock, where she's on the crescent moon. This was popular in the 1920s. My wife and I and our 2 kids, we traveled to Italy several years ago. And this is the bust of Galileo. He's holding a telescope in his hand in the Galileo Museum. If you go to Florence, be sure and go into this museum. It's easily no line. It's around the corner from the Uffizi Museum, which has a line that you'll take all day just to get there. Now, right behind his bust, in a glass figure, this is Galileo's right middle finger, his bones and his palm of his hand. And it's usually called Galileo's last message to the Pope. And those of you know what I'm talking about. I don't have to say the word. So these are some of the drawings that are in Sidereus Nuncius, watercolors that Galileo made. And this is the book that got him in trouble. Stillman Drake was a professor of astronomy at UC Berkeley for many, many years, and is forwarded by Einstein. This is the book that got Galileo in trouble with the church in 1632. Luckily for Kepler, he had passed away and lived in a Protestant nation, so he was out of reach. But the Pope, they put both of these books on their forbidden list, and they were people were unable to buy or get copies of these two books until 1835, when the list was eliminated. Now, this is Galileo's monument in Santa Croce, which is also open to the public. It's within walking distance of the museum. Galileo is now incarcerated in this sarcophagus. What I like to point out is that, and this is his statue, he's holding a telescope, and he has a globe, a moon. And notice that the fresco was for somebody else's tomb to be here. In 1732 is when they moved Galileo from the back room. He was basically exonerated, and they moved him here. But once you put wet plaster on the wall, you have to paint it right away. And so this never got painted. Across the hall, right directly opposite Galileo, is Michelangelo. And, he was born in Florence. And when he passed away, the Florentines went up to Rome, sold his body, and brought it back. But in the basilica here is also people like Dante and Machiavelli and other famous Renaissance people. So this is Riccioli's moon nomenclature, which I talk about a lot in Luna Cognita. That was the beginning of Luna Cognita. So I wanted to know what these names were. And I like to talk about Alphonsus. Alfonso turns out to be named for Alfonso X, a king of Spain, who brought a whole bunch of scholars together who started translating all these Greek and Arabic texts. They were usually Greek texts that had been translated into Arabic, and then he translated them into Latin to distribute them. This is the map actually by Grimaldi, who drew the map. Now, if you want to get copies of the moon maps, you can go to down here in the bottom. I said the HTTPS planetary name. This is the USGS, U.S. Geological Survey's website in Flagstaff, Arizona. You click on the image, and you'll get a PDF version from the Lunar Orbiter, Reconnaissance Orbiter, LRO, high resolution, and you can also expand them and look up. These are also the pictures that are with Google Maps. If you download Google Maps, it's free. One of the menus you can pull down is Google Moon. There's also Google Mars, and you can look at the reconnaissance orbiters for those two, for the Moon and Mars, in great detail. In fact, on the Moon ones, you can even see where the Apollo landed, and they've also been able to see you can see the track for the rover, where they plan to flag and such. So I really recommend, if you want to get the high resolution images of the moon, the paper ones based on Lunar Orbiter are no longer available online. You might find them on eBay or somebody selling them, something like that. Now, when I ask is, and since I can't hear you, on the moon is the rapid on the moon, and I always ask people when I give this talk in public, and only a few people can ever figure out where the rabbit is. And this is with an overlay. Here's Mare Crucium as the tail, and his legs, and Kepler is his eye, and the other one, and here is the crater Tycho. You can see that it is a dark halo crater. Now, speaking of the moon, what is this? Well, the Chinese records indicate, in Chinese and Korean, that in July of what we now know as 1054, there was an explosion in the sky that lasted for 23 days. Now, the rabbit in the moon, which I just pointed out, was a symbol of the Membres Indian of the American Southwest, Arizona, New Mexico area. They used the rabbit to indicate the moon. Professor Robin Roberts of the University of Texas, with his students, they were looking for and counting all like these zigzags and everything and the whiskers. This is the only object that had 23 rays, 23 being the days it was visible in the daylight. And it was near the moon the first night. So here's the moon, the legs for the rabbit. Now, the Indians left this site somewhere between 1050 and 1100. So it's from the time period, and it more than likely is for the Crab Nebula. This plate, the one on the right, is an eagle eating a rabbit, indicating the phases of the moon. And these are in the originals of the bowls. They're not plates; these are bowls. Are in the museum at the University of Minnesota. So if you're in that neighborhood, you can go visit those. Now, my wife and I went to China in September of 2019, and in Lhasa, Tibet, we were in the Intercontinental Hotel. This arch of glass is the lobby, a huge lobby. But we were in the cafeteria area, and they had blow up rabbit and blow up moon because it was their mid-autumn festival. We just happened to be there because the next day they didn't have the balloon and the rabbit; they were gone. So I was able to get a picture of that one day. And these are the Pickering lunar drawing. And I did mention briefly as an aside the Messier object. Messier A used to be named for William Henry Pickering, but it got changed. The one I like to point out is in this drawing, it appears like a woman with her early 1900s hairstyle. Okay? But this is the lady, the Gibson girl, with her pillow, reading a book with her bodice and her behind here. If I'd shown this as north up, you would easily be able to find the lady or it's a man, because here it looks, they drew it like a man. This is from 1907, and here's postcards from 1937 where it's a woman and each phase of the moon, what you can see, what you can't see. It's best to look for this near full moon, either just before or just after. What I like is this postcard is the donkey and the moon, and this is the nightmare, M-A-R-E. So, and this is one of the last ones here coming up. Notice the shape of the moon and the lunar glitter on the surface of the water, which you can see. I've also seen when it was a moonless night, there was a glitter from Venus, a real narrow little streak. That was in Venus. It was very noticeable in the sky. Now I have a bunch of antique postcards with the moon. Here's a French postcard from the 1930s. Here's a German postcard circa 1910. Here's another French postcard from 1930, an Austrian postcard, and I use these in my book. Now this is my last card. So you guys don't forget to brush your teeth. This is the Johnson & Johnson ad from 1887. So that's my last one. I guess we can stop.
Very good. Very good.
So any
Robert?
questions? Thank you.
Robert, I'd like to mention a few things.
You're still muted.
Can you hear me, Robert? Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute.
Some years ago, I actually finally got around to reading Jules Verne's book. And he really did his research. It turns out that the so-called, if you want to call it, launch of the bullet, the cannon, whatever, was dug into the ground, and he picked for the launch site. Remember, this was in the 1800s. He picked what he called a site near what he called Tampa Town, the site of today's Tampa, Florida, which just happens to be very close to the same latitude as Cape Kennedy. I mean, who would have known? Who would have known? And as far as Galileo goes, I also used to drive quite a ways to and from work, and I had a chance to listen to the audiobook of Galileo's daughter, which was extremely touching.
Yeah, yeah.
Being
They
a
put her
father.
in a convent.
Yeah, and they had a beautiful, beautiful relationship. His letters to her were burned by the Mother Superior, but her letters to him, of course, were kept, and that's the basis of the book. It turns out, I think you touched on this when you said that two bodies or sets of skeletons were found in Galileo's casket. It was some years later that they found out that they buried Galileo and his daughter together, which was most touching. And then finally, my own daughter is getting married next July. I'm here in Atlanta. She and her fiance want a destination wedding, so it's going to be in Florence, Italy. So,
and we're all invited.
You're all invited. You're all invited. We're gonna raise the Titanic and float over there.
If Galileo was so prescient, why didn't he buy property in Florida?
I don't know. How do I get to the Galileo Museum or whatever it's called?
Okay. What we've done, and we've talked to let me back up. My son-in-law is from Barcelona. So we've been to Barcelona several times, taken a cruise ship to Italy.
No, we are
the first time we took the cruise their excursion, and you didn't get to see much. So there's an outfit called Joe Bonanno limo turn. They'll pick you up at the port, take you where you want to go. So they took us to Florence because it's inland a little ways from the port. Took us to the Galileo Museum. Now, in the middle of town, there is the big church cathedral, the Doma. A couple blocks away is the Uffizi Museum, and you can tell it by its long line. Around the corner from the Uffizi is the Galileo Museum. A couple blocks away from that is Santa Croce, all within walking distance, no problem, right along the river. Now, the other thing I mentioned about the limo people is they made an appointment for us to see the David statue at the Academy, which is another major museum, which you can stand in line all day long too. For €4 more, we went into the side door in the Academy, and the David statue was maybe 100 feet away at the most. And there were a lot of people around it, so you waited for that. But instead of standing in line for hours, we got right in, and then they took us to a restaurant. So it's Joe Banana, and look them up. They took us to the Amalfi Coast. They took us to Sorrento, which is where the Allies landed in World War II. And we went up in the hills there to a family-owned olive oil factory. Now, the factory, they weren't in operation because it was harvest time. Been in the family since the 1840s. We did buy some of their olive oil, and they shipped it home. Like I said, our son-in-law's from Barcelona. They use a lot of olive oil. So we shipped home a gallon of their virgin olive oil, and we bought some other bottles. Then they took us up a little higher to a mom and pop cheese factory where the kids got to mix the cheese, mozzarella. They put it from the hot water to the cold water and then gave the kids balls of cheese. And then we went higher up to a pizza place where they made the pizza in a wood oven, the same cheese right from the factory we had just been at. And
Good.
and if you're Joe tourist, you may not see it. When we took their tour in Rome, he was driving through the side streets. I'm losing my voice again. To the palace of the where the Swiss guards were at, and you look through the keyhole in the gate, and it's direct line to the dome of the St. Peter, and it's lined on both sides when you're looking down this aisle like of Italian cypresses. And that's not on the normal tourist schedule. They took us there, and there was nobody else there, no thousands of tourists and such.
Wow.
They'll take you where you want to go, and if you fly in, they'll stick you up at the airport and take you. Again, Joe Banana, you can find them online and make arrangements. They'll take you on, they have some canned tours if you want to go to a certain place, or you can tell them where you want to go. When they picked us up, they had water and food for us and such, car seats for the kids.
Okay.
So that's where I highly recommend that you check them out for your destination wedding.
We'll see how much time we have to do that. I want to see the Galileo thing, and we'll see what my wife will put up with.
We could stay there. He said, "What do you want me to pick you up in an hour, 2 hours, whatever?" It's more than just Galileo. It's what was their scientific instrument museum.
Yeah.
They have an armillary sphere in there. One of the rooms was all about birthing. And in the old days, they used to use forceps to pull the baby out.
Yeah.
And so they have all that kind of chemical laboratory, all kinds of stuff.
Okay, I want to open it up to anybody else that has questions. I don't want to monopolize this.
Looks like David has a question.
Robert, your slide with the stereo cards intrigued me. I live here in Lawrence, Kansas, and I've never heard of that stereo card publisher.
Oh, Lawrence, Kansas is a French publisher. That's his last name. I'm also a member of the National Stereo View Society, and I'm working on an article about him and what he's produced. And I've found on Google Earth where he lived because I have his address, and I have purchased some other view cards from him. The other thing is that I'm also working on, when we went to Burr Castle last summer, we got a book about Mary, who was Lord Ross's wife. She was into photography in the 50s and took a picture of the Leviathan, the big telescope, and the 3-foot telescope was next to it. She took stereo views of it. It's the 3-foot telescope that the next Earl, the 4th Earl, used to take the temperature of the moon. He also used what we call the moon temperature device, which is upstairs in the museum. It's a 24-inch, a spotlight mirror. The 3-foot had a speculum mirror, and he was successful in taking temperature readings of the moon back then. So I'm in the process of writing an article on that. I don't know where I'm going to park it yet. Probably the BA Journal. That's probably the first place. So those are things that have come about because of our travels. But yeah, so if you go to Burr Castle, the 3-foot used to be to the southeast of the Leviathan. Leviathan's still there. It's just a grassy area now. It used to have a concrete pillar that the 3-foot was on, and Mary took a stereo view of it, and so it's in her book. She took a whole bunch of others. So I'm working on an article on her stereo views, also for the Stereo View magazine.
A friend of mine is a friend of the Rosses, current Lord Ross, and he was visiting Burr Castle a few years ago, And then he and Lord Ross, current Lord Ross, went on a treasure hunt to the castle looking for specifically some Milky Way atlases that had been produced there at the castle. At least the author of the atlas had sketched the Milky Way lying on his back on the castle grounds, and the atlas never really was widely published. I guess there was some disagreement between the Lord Ross of that time and the Castle Publishing, and the atlases, most of them remained in the castle, and they were, the friend of mine, when they went into Mary's photo studio where she did her developing, found some loose floorboards in that room, and pulled up the boards and found the jackets that the Milky Way atlases were to have been put into.
Oh, well, you never know.
Yeah, that was just a little tidbit about Burr Castle. A friend of mine who's a friend of the Rosses.
You know, we suffer a lot of times from traffic jam. It's supposed to be an hour-and-a-half drive from Dublin to Burr Castle because of 2 major accidents on their motorway that day. It took us 6.5 hours to get there, and Miss Google got us lost in some little town, got us into the town to try and bypass one of the accidents, and then she didn't know how to get us back out. I had to ask some people we saw walking, how do we get out of here? They told us which streets to take, go around the roundabout, straight through, go to the next roundabout, go straight through, and right back on the freeway. So, yeah, like I said, took us 6.5 hours to get what should have been an hour-and-a-half drive.
Right.
But
And the roads are kind of narrow too.
I see that Alan has his hand raised. You have a question, Alan?
Yeah, where are you selling Luna Cognita at, on Amazon?
Yes, well, as I said earlier, it's in 2 locations. I prefer you get it from Springer himself, Springer.com. They charge the $89.90 price, but they know how to send you all 3 volumes, and they don't charge for shipping. Amazon, which may charge you for shipping unless you have Prime, they still have a habit of sending out volume 1 to one customer, volume 2 to the next customer, volume 3 to the third guy. And then you have to send it back and complain and send all this stuff. Even though it comes around cellophane that says don't separate them. So and Amazon keeps changing the price. The other day it was 125. A couple weeks ago it was 90, and back when it first came out for a few days they had it at 54. So you never know what it's going to be. But go to Springer.com and get it directly from them. That's my recommendation.
That's okay. That sounds good. And also, you had those that website for getting the images from NASA. I didn't. Could they put it in the chat so I could copy that down? Or
yeah, it's actually the U.S. Geological Survey.
Oh, it's U.S. Geological Survey. Okay.
Yeah. Just Google them and one of Flagstaff.
I want to
Arizona, and you'll find it. And if you're looking for any other maps because they handle the naming on every item in every celestial item except comets.
Okay.
Let me interject that you can also go onto the ALPO website at alpo-astronomy.org and go to the upper right corner of the screen and go to section galleries, click on that, and then it'll open some other things and look for not the journals, but monologues or whatever we call them. Monographs, thank you. And there are several different lunar atlases available, the charts
Well,
Some of them are pretty big, but you can download those as well from the ALPO website. They're free, they're PDF.
All right. Okay. Okay.
since you mentioned that, the monograph, number, I think it's number 11, which is the copy of Schmidt's map from 1870. That's actually John Westfall came over and took pictures of my copy of the map.
Yeah.
And then he went and published the copy, which is fine. I have no problem with that. But that's where they came from. I have a very detailed collection of lunar maps. Even somebody mentioned Ewan Whitaker. He gave me a map that had been given to him by Kuiper, who had been given to it by the producer of the map, Camille something, I forget his name right hand. And each of them signed it. So now I've signed it. So when it gets passed on to, that copy gets passed on to somebody else. But yeah, I've been collecting lunar maps. You'll see the box behind me. That's all the paper LAC maps from the 60s and 70s, which again, you might be able to find them on eBay, but the last time they were on eBay was like $60 a page the guy was trying to get for them. They were originally like $5 each at the USGS in Palo Alto before they went out of business over there.
Okay.
Any other questions? If not, I appreciate Ken that you asked me to be the keynote speaker. I greatly appreciate that, and hope that it was a good lesson, as Ken said earlier. And thank you for your applause. I appreciate it. And keep on looking up, keep on studying and getting the book and reading. If you want me to autograph it, although I can't autograph your own book unless you happen to live here in the area. And I can send you a sticker, sign it, and then you can put it in the book. My address is in the journal, the back, because I'm the book review editor. So you'll find me there. And if you have a book that you think should be reviewed, please send me your review. And whether it doesn't have to be the moon, it can be any solar system object that you want to write, that you have written about, or that you like the book and you want to do a review, and we'll get it published in the journal. So we mention that each time, but please, I need more reviews to edit and get published, and this is the source that we can do it in.
You have anything,
good, Bob.
Doing that for 20 years now, but I enjoy it.
Do you have anything coming up for the journal?
Huh?
You have another book review coming up for the journal?
Yeah, I'm working on, I showed you Robert Reeves' book on the moon. I'm doing that, working on that, as long as working on the other writing project and getting ready for this afternoon.
Can you get something to me by end of September?
Oh, sure. No problem. Probably in the next few weeks.
Great.
We should all be lunatics.
Yep. Okay. Again, for those of you who may have come late, look up Poison Books. It appears if you have a book in your collection from the Victorian era, especially if it has a lime green cover, paper cloth cover, it may contain arsenic and it may flake. So they have a database of books that they know to this point that have poison covers on, and you need to encase it in plastic, a Ziploc bag or something, because the arsenic is not good. And some of the books also contain lead and mercury.
Good to know.
Pigment. So I just got that message the other day from a friend. So look them up. Poison Book Project.
Great. Well, thank you, Bob, for your presentation. Really enjoyed it.
Enjoy.
Thank you.
See you guys all later.
Good to hear from you.
Good job.
Thank you.
And this whole keynote address and the awards presentations are online for you to review.
They are on YouTube. We are currently live streaming on YouTube and on our Facebook page. So, all right. Are we done? No, we have one more thing to do, right? Oh, wait. We
Oh,
have door prizes. Door prizes. Who wants a door prize?
who wants a door?
Who wants a door? All right. I've received 27 emails for the door prize. Let me see which one we got here. We do this one, this one, this one. Our first one is going to be from Cat's Eye. It's a book called Newtonian Collimation.
Good book.
Good book, very good book. And here I have the little bowl with all the email addresses and addresses in. Toss it around. Okay, here I've got a winner. It is Steve Bennett. Is he here?
Steve,
If not, we will mail him the book. I have his address.
I hope he has a Newtonian.
If not, he can donate it to a club or something. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I know Vic Menard personally. He's a member of the local group of Deep Sky Observers down here in Sarasota.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so I have his book and he autographed it for me.
Okay. Next up, we have from Explore Scientific. Ooh, ah, everybody. Ooh, ah.
Ooh,
Ooh, ah. What's the value of this, Ken?
$279.
$279. It's a 15 15 millimeter eye relief, 8.5 millimeter ocular from Explore Scientific, 82 degree, and it's waterproof. How about that?
More than my original RV6.
Oh yeah. I think I paid $216 for my RV6. And the winner of this gorgeous eyepiece is David Houlihan.
David. Okay.
Well, that's good. Thank you very much.
Is that you, David? Good.
It is. It is. Thank you.
You're thrilled.
Okay.
You're thrilled.
I am. That's
And-
good.
Okay. And the final, where is my thingy here?
Drum roll.
Hang on. Stop sharing that. And the final door prize from Celestron. This has been sitting in my living room. It's huge. I'm looking forward to shipping it. It is a 15 by 70 binocular.
Whoa.
Ooh.
Nice.
With a tripod adapter and a carrying case. Gorgeous binoculars.
The carrying case needs wheels.
Yeah. I'm downsizing, so I'm going like 30 millimeter IP binoculars now. And the winner, they're all sticking together. And the winner of the binoculars is Steve Biger.
Beeger. Steve Beeger, are you here?
I'm here. I'm speechless.
No, you're not. I
Since
know.
when?
Fantastic.
I know.
Thank
Steve,
you very much.
You know Steve. Hey,
Since
Steve.
I know Ken from way back here in the Atlanta area with the Atlanta Astronomy Club. So
That's right.
thank you very much,
Fantastic.
Tim, and all. Wonderful.
Sure. Well, I again want to thank our sponsors, Cat's Eye, Celestron, and Explore Scientific for supporting this conference. I want to thank all of our speakers. You guys did a fantastic job. If you want to go back and see your talks again, they are all on YouTube for both days and also this evening's adventure. I want to thank Ken for his support and helping me out on this thing. It's not an easy task to put this thing together. And I want to thank all of you for attending. It's been a pleasure. We have voted to do another virtual conference next year. So we'll be doing the same thing again. If anybody has any closing comments or we're listening. Ken, do you have anything to say?
I do. I just want to say thank you to the ALPO leadership team that put on this fantastic program.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. It was great.
A whole lot to you, Ken and Tim, especially for organizing this. Tim, what is the address, the YouTube address of this conference? Do you have any idea?
It is on all of the slides. It's let me pull up a slide and show you. It's
At the Association of Lunar and Planetary Observers.
it's youtube.com/ you don't even need to see Association of Lunar Planetary Observers, one word.
Oh, okay. All right,
And
good.
that-
Thank you.
Okay.
I want to add that I'd like each of the door prize winners, once you receive your door prize, please make a note now to send a thank you letter
Yes.
to the company donor. We'll provide the address if one isn't provided already to you, because even though the company may write this off as a business expense, they're doing it out of the good nature. You know, we are nothing compared to the Astronomical League as far as membership size goes. So it would mean something, I think, if you put in a very sincere thank you note or letter. I don't know if you want to do it by email or by paper, but send something to
Yes.
Celestron, to
Cat's Eye.
to Cat's Eye, and to Explore Scientific.
It goes a long way, because every year Ken goes out there and he tries to get these things, and he tried to get something from Mead and Orion, but they never got back to him. I don't know.
They went away.
Big surprise.
They'll do anything to not answer me.
They will. Definitely.
So you were the reason. So you were
Goes
the
on,
reason they went on.
better declare bankruptcy.
Yeah.
I'm
Again, I
getting
want to thank.
eaten by mosquitoes because this is where I'm sitting out here in the pavilion of cellophane. So I'm going to sign off.
All right.
We'll see all of you end of July next year.
Thank
Hey,
you all
Tim.
for showing up.
Bye.
If not before.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
See you later, John.
Bye.
Thanks a lot.